Hello, welcome to From Broken to Healthy. This is where leading health experts share how to heal your body naturally and reclaim your energy and vitality to live your best life. I'm Betsy Walker, your host, and today I'm so excited to introduce to you Rena Bacone. Thank you for being with us, Rena.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me, Betsy. It's great to be here today.
Yes, I am just so excited to bring to you Rena today because she's got so many different talents, right? She's amazing, and so I'm going to give you a little bit of her background here real quick. So she is the founder and CEO of Passion Fit, and is an entrepreneur, a writer, a public speaker, activewear designer, online course creator, media spokesperson, and certified health and wellness expert. She's featured regularly as a health contributor on the Fox KTVU News Morning Show, and she speaks to various organizations and companies such as Microsoft, Google, Amazon, Intuit, and many others. You can find her interviewed on podcasts such as Pausecast and Profitable Happiness. And she also writes health columns and for publications such as Thrive Global, Shape, and Working Mother. So I am honored to share with you Rena on this summit because she's not only a health and wellness and fitness expert, she also has a background in nutrition, mindfulness, but I'm really, really excited to share her because she is known for her coaching in work-life balance. And I think that is a big issue out there. So Rena, let's get right into it today. Are you ready?
I'm ready. Sounds great, Betsy.
Awesome. So I know you're a busy mom and you have a couple kids and you're an entrepreneur. So it seems like you're doing many, many things. And I know we're all busy, especially moms, right? We're all very busy. And we see somebody like you and we think, okay, how does she do it? This can't be real, right? So can you tell us a little bit about your typical day and what are your health and fitness practices and how do you fit it all into your life to make sure you stay well?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I want to start off by saying, I've gone through periods of burnout. I have lacked work-life balance in my own life, having worked in Silicon Valley. I worked in corporate America for a lot of my career before I left to become an entrepreneur. So I've experienced firsthand and I've seen firsthand what can happen when you are out of balance, especially if you are a working mom or a working parent. And so a lot of the practices that I have for myself and for my clients came from my own mistakes along the way. So I wouldn't say that I, have it all figured out. I'm human like everybody else. So I just want people to feel like they can relate. But what I do and what I've learned from my experiences is getting really organized and having a calendar where you literally block times for your wellness activities can go a long way in just making it a regular, important part of your life. So I literally on my calendar, I have it color coded and I block time for my workouts. Thankfully, I do teach about 3 to 5 times a week, my own signature line of Passion Fit classes. So I kind of have a built-in workout when I teach, but even on the days that I don't teach, I try to reserve that time to go for a run or a walk or do yoga or do an online video or some other form of fitness activity so that I get that in for myself as well. I block out time for things like mindfulness and meditation every day. I have the hours that I want to sleep, including when my bedtime is, self-care, and I really try to work it around the schedule of my kids as well, and my husband. And especially with all of us here in quarantine right now, we really have to be mindful of each other's schedules. It's definitely not easy at times, but I do try to do my best to make sure that I'm taking all things into consideration. And again, when you have it blocked in your calendar, you're more likely to prioritize it and do it.
And don't you think also that just that act of blocking it on your calendar, you're basically telling yourself, I am important. Yes. This is a priority in my life. And I mean, I know for me, when I don't do that, then it starts to be where I'm not the priority and then it kind of things go downhill from there. So would you agree that there's a psychological aspect to actually doing that?
Yes, I wholeheartedly agree. There is a psychological aspect because if you have a meeting for work or you have a doctor's appointment or some other thing that's on your calendar, then that is deemed as important and you're more likely to follow through it with it. So why not have your own wellness practices put into your calendar as well? Because if you don't have your health and you don't have your well-being, you really can't be at your best, and you're not going to be able to, be productive and successful in your job or be a hands-on and present parent to your children, or a good community member or a friend or whatever it is that you are in your life. And so the more you can get that sort of mindset set in within you, the more likely you are able to say, you know what, I matter and my health matters. And the more that I prioritize that, the better I'm going to be for everything else in my life and everyone else in my life.
I would wholeheartedly agree. Thank you for that. That was number one tip everybody needs to write down in their notes today. So, and moving on, I think most people realize they need to do more, and they want to do more and we all know that we need to be active and we need to, eat well and do all these things and have mindfulness practices to be more healthy. What would you suggest is the first step or element somebody needs to start, to be successful and or even to restart? Maybe they've already started and they fell back and they need to restart. What would you be your suggestion for the first thing they need to do?
Yeah, so I think it's starting with something that you like and that you enjoy. So from a nutrition perspective, starting with, you need to eat fruits and vegetables and plant-based foods as a foundation of any nutrition plan, right? Regardless of dietary restrictions. But knowing what your dietary restrictions might be, knowing what your likes and dislikes are, start with fruits or vegetables or other types of healthy proteins that you're going to enjoy eating. And that way you can build around it. But then the motivation will naturally be there because it's something that you like. The same would apply to a fitness regimen. If you just hate being on the stair climber or running on the treadmill and you know that every time you set out to do it, you dread it, then that's probably not the right activity for you. But if you know that going out for a 20-minute walk every day is something that's doable, it's something you enjoy because you get fresh air, maybe you listen to a podcast while you walk, or you socially distance and walk with a friend, or your spouse, whatever it is, finding something that you're going to naturally enjoy will motivate you. So I think that is really important. And I also think finding a community, having, whether it's online or eventually when we can get back to being in person again, that is going to give you support. It's going to make you feel like you're not alone, and you can surround yourself with like-minded people who may have the same types of goals or even the same types of struggles that you have. And you can feel like, you can each lift each other up and hold each other accountable.
And wouldn't you also agree that finding something that fits well into your life, not only that you like to do, but actually fits? Because if you have something that you're trying to fit yourself into and it just doesn't work, then
Yeah.
your chances are you're not going to be successful over the long period. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, our lives are busy and complex for most of us these days. And yes, if it's something that is unrealistic, like getting up at 5 a.m. and running for, an hour and a half, if that's just not, if you're not a morning person, and as much as you love running, if you don't have that much time to dedicate, it's going to probably be something that you might start with the best of intentions, but then it may kind of fall by the wayside as life gets busy and other things take over. So if you can find short bursts of time or activities that do easily fit into your lifestyle and what you're already doing, I do think that that is more doable. Like I'll tell my clients and students, even if it's a quick 10, 15 minute, online workout video that you do when you wake up in the morning, you don't have to, really get ready. You can sort of just throw on some workout clothes and just go to your computer or your phone and just get that done. It's realistic. It could fit into your life. And it's something that, when you think that it's doable, you're more likely to do it the next day and the next day. And that is something that can then develop over the long term into a regular habit.
And I think that, this whole thing with the COVID-19, it's really changed, obviously, the way a lot of us do exercise. And I know it's changed the way I
Yeah.
teach, right? And I think that
Right.
you can find classes that are pre-recorded, and we've always been able to do that. But there are also a lot of instructors like myself, and I assume you, that we're doing live
Yeah.
classes online, which is, I think that's kind of new. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, I do think that live stream classes actually have been around. I think it's definitely more mainstream now because of the pandemic and COVID, and more instructors that had always just taught at a facility or a gym or studio are now having to bring their classes online. So I think, again, it has become more mainstream, but it is something that's been out there for a while. For myself in particular, for Passion Fit, I've had a YouTube channel for the last 6 years. So I already have on-demand videos that people can do whenever it fits into their schedule. But then I do also offer the live stream classes 3 times a week, sometimes more. Sometimes I'll do some Facebook Lives or Instagram Lives as well. But then I have those recorded so that if people feel like that time doesn't work in their schedule, then they have the ability to do it when it works. And I never want anybody to feel like a schedule constraint is, can deter them from doing something that they need to do for their health. So I think the more we as wellness professionals and fitness instructors can provide a lot of different options, the more it will help our clientele to really fit it in when it works for them.
And there's just really no excuse, right? Now that we have all this, right? That we can stay healthy. No,
You
there's,
can, yeah. And technology, I always tell my clients, we want to use technology for good, because I think technology can kind of sometimes harm our health and well-being when we're stuck on social media all the time. We're constantly checking our phones, checking our email. That can create stress and anxiety. But if we are able to use apps and videos for purposes of workouts or even meditations, or even, calming music to help us sleep at night, in my book, that's kind of a definition of using technology for good. But even with that being said, I do have clients that don't like to work out online. That's just not their thing. They really prefer either in-person classes, or if they can't do those right now due to the pandemic, people are just taking it outside. And I tell them that's perfectly fine. And that's great. You do need vitamin D, you do need fresh air. And so if you, especially this time of year, in most parts of the country and the world, you can get your exercise done outside. So I encourage that as well if the apps and the online video is not your thing.
yeah, I always say something's better than nothing. Just move, right? Just move.
Right. That's
So,
right.
yeah. So we've talked a little bit about this, but when you're coaching people, how do you help them achieve the work-life balance that they desire, and that enables them to fit in all their wellness practices?
Yeah. So what I start off with is, having them do an assessment of themselves, because I think until you have that self-awareness of where you currently stand in your life, whether it's with, your work, with your personal life, with your health and well-being, if you don't have that awareness, then it's hard to know where to make change. And so I usually have them sort of go through a personal assessment and just kind of highlight, where are they struggling, where are they facing challenges, and then from there, what's their desired outcome, where do they actually want to be in terms of their health or their career or having more time for their family. So you can look at your current state and your desired state, and then we can figure out how to get you to where you want to go. I have a 7-step holistic approach to wellness that I use, and that includes things like fitness, nutrition, mindfulness, sleep, self-care, productivity, and then making time for your family, your friends, and having fun in life. Because I think a lot of times, and again, I've experienced it and I've seen it firsthand throughout my career, where people are just working and working around the clock, and they don't have time for the things that really matter. And it's kind of like, well, what are we working for? If we're this unhappy, if we're becoming unhealthy, and we aren't making time for the things that matter, you can try to have all the success or money or other material, outcomes that you want, but that's not going to bring you true health and well-being and happiness. And so the more you can have that understanding, the more you can then figure out, okay, how do I find that mix? And I don't think there's ever a thing as perfect balance. We all know that there's times in life where one thing kind of takes priority over the other. But in my mind, if you follow that 80-20 rule, and if 80% of the time you are, making time for your exercise and eating healthy and your family and sleep, and you're able to still be productive at work, then that other 20% of the time, if you really need to, crank at work because you're working towards a promotion, or you're on a big deadline, then okay, for a little period of time, you can kind of give that the greater priority. Or if there's somebody in your family who is ill and you need to care for that family member, then okay, then your personal life takes priority. So I think it's just understanding what's happening in your life, but really trying your best to stay consistent and again, follow that 80-20 rule. And knowing that it's never going to be perfect. And I think the more we can accept that our life is never going to be perfectly balanced, then we can actually be more realistic about it and be more successful with it.
I would totally agree with that. And I would add, just from my own experience, that our life ebb and flows, right? So things change. And I think we have to be kind to ourselves when things change, and we can't really have the same expectations of ourselves that, that we would in a, a perfect situation, right? We have to ebb and flow and be dynamic, I guess would be my word for it.
Yes, I 100% agree. And I think, down to for those of us who are women who have had kids, our bodies change, right? In different stages of life. Our perspective changes as we become parents and as our parents are aging, or, whatever stage in life you're in. If you've gone to college or graduate school, or whether you've worked or, have become an entrepreneur, all the different experiences in your life do ebb and flow, as you're saying, and they do change. And so I think being able to stay flexible with yourself, as you mentioned, I agree, be kind to yourself, because you have a whole life ahead of you. And I think if you can make those adjustments along the way, but keep your core values, keep your core, things that are important to you in your life. And I hope that health is one of them, then that's going to allow you to just continue on your own journey in a way that, is healthy and can allow you to be successful.
And how do you help or coach people around being consistent and having a sustainable practice, getting those habits? Do you have any like really good tricks or tips to create good habits so that they stick?
Yes. So I'm certified in behavior change coaching. And so what I like to work with my clients on is to focus on starting with small and simple steps. There was a study at Stanford University, I reference it often, by a PhD named BJ Fogg. And his focus was on how, it takes about 66 days to make a change and for it to stick. So that's a little bit over 2 months. And so the more we can really focus on taking something simple. So maybe it's something as simple as, I am going to start eating more fruit. So I'm going to start eating an apple every day. And if you do that each day and then positively reinforce it, it might sound silly, but telling yourself, I'm really proud of myself. I set out to do this today. I did it. And now I'm going to do it again tomorrow. And then the next day you take the action, you positively reinforce it again so that you're associating good, positive, and successful feelings with the action. And then you do it again. And you keep going until you hit that 66-day period. And before you know it, it will become a regular part of your daily life. And then you can add your next goal. Maybe it's now adding a vegetable. Maybe it's now adding a 10-minute walk every day, or practicing mindfulness for 5 minutes a day. So it's important to start simple. I know from my own experiences, I've always been a type A personality and always trying to overachieve. And I think throughout my life, I've set myself up for failure many times because I set big, unrealistic goals that are not attainable. And then I don't feel good when I don't hit those goals. And it's like when you look at what I was trying to do in such a short period of time, well, no wonder, right? So I've even learned from my own experiences to keep it simple and small and attainable, and then just keep adding from there. And as you kind of set those building blocks up, before you know it, you'll have achieved some really big, audacious goals, but you did it one step at a time. So that's what I would recommend, and that's what I recommend to my clients.
I could totally relate to what you're saying. I'm the same type A, trying to do too much at once. And I do have to learn those lessons. I think everybody does. So
Yeah.
thank you for that. Yeah, creating those little habits, they can take you, just a small thing, right? Adding
Yeah.
on little by little, and it take you where you need to go. So I encourage you all that's another one of those key tips you need to take away from this video. It's crucial to being able to succeed long term. So thank you for that.
Sure.
I, since I'm a therapeutic movement person, so I'm getting people that are hurt, and I see people who they're they're getting hurt at other exercise classes or forms of exercise that, just isn't healthy, especially maybe for, where they are in life. So when you're young and very strong, you can do more than when, as you start to get into your middle ages, and even into your senior years. So can you tell us, our audience, just how you would suggest somebody, to take on something like high intensity training and do it safely? I mean, there's a lot of other exercise forms out there. I know that's kind of a buzzword now, is the high intensity training. So that's kind of what I thought I would ask you about. But if you have anything else to share in that regard, I'd love to hear it.
Yeah, so yes, I teach high intensity interval training, and it is a very effective way to promote weight loss, to speed up your metabolism, and to really make you strong and also have that cardiovascular strength. But it can be risky for sure, especially as you do start to get older. If you have back pain or back issues or knee issues, you do have to be really careful. So what I suggest is, looking at the long view. I've always said, I used to train for fitness competitions, many years ago. And I was putting my body through a lot, where I was training 6 to 7 days a week, 2 to 3 hours at a time for these competitions. And I could feel it. Back then I could take it, right? But as you do, after having kids and as you start to get older, you do have to be careful. And so what I tell my clients and my students is, don't be afraid to modify. I myself do sometimes, try to push myself to still do everything full out because I think I can and I should be able to because I'm the instructor. But even I'm learning that sometimes if you do end up getting injured, it's just not worth it. And if you look at that long view of, whether you're in your 20s, your 30s, your 40s, 50s, 60s, and beyond, you want to be able to still work out and exercise and move your body as you get older. And I, in my mind, think I want to be in my 80s and still able to be active, right? And so if you take things to such an extreme when you're younger, you're going to pay the price for it later. So if it means you can't jump because you do have knee problems or the impact on your back is too great, then you don't need to jump. And I have shown my students that you can still get your heart rate up. You can still, get that cardiovascular, work in even when you're not jumping. It's just making bigger movements. It's using bigger muscle groups so that you're going to, burn more calories. And if you focus on strength training, that's going to also help with your metabolism. The more muscle mass you have, especially as you get older, you want to do things that promote bone density building. That doesn't mean that you have to lift extremely heavy weights. Absolutely not. I use 3 to 5 pound weights in my classes, and that's what I encourage my students to use, because oftentimes we're using the weights along with doing things like squats or lunges. And so because it's a multifaceted exercise, it's effective because you're working multiple muscle groups, but you can also do it safely when you have light weights or even just using your own body weight. And when you do things like avoiding the jumping and just moving, getting your arms up high above your heart and then coming down low as you use your core and your legs to bend down, movements like that can still be really effective. So I think it's important for people to know their limits, know what their injuries are, or if they're recovering from an injury, to not push themselves too hard. And again, challenge your body. But again, if you're feeling pain, if you're feeling, a lot of discomfort, you want to stop immediately and you want to reset. And I think it's good for everyone to know it's okay to do that, because you're preserving your body so that you can be active well into your older year, your senior years.
I love that. It's, it's preaching to the choir here. That's what I tell my students as well. And I also really think it's important for them to be very mindful when they're doing exercise, so that they know, what their target is, the muscle groups they're targeting, and to know how to do it safely and to do it with great form. That I
Yes.
I think I can't go to a gym because it drives me crazy what I see people doing, because I see them hurting themselves. You probably have the same
Yes.
um, experience. So,
That's right.
and I would say also that you don't be afraid to ask for some help, from somebody that's qualified,
Yeah.
um, to even just give you some tips, because it is really important, especially as you age, to do the exercises correctly. Wouldn't you agree,
Yeah.
Rena?
I 100% agree. Your form is everything. I mean, that could really make or break the exercise or the movement for you. Some of the big ones are using your core. I think I've actually had some students that have come up to me after class, and I so appreciate that they did this. They said, what do you exactly, you say it all the time and we hear you saying it in class, but what do you mean by engage your core? And I said, you know what? I loved that you've asked me this question. And so in my next class, I actually highlighted that to the group. I didn't call the person out, but I said, you know what? Many of you may also have this question, right? And then I kind of explained to them, it's pulling your navel in towards your spine. And I would demonstrate from them so they can see what it means to engage your core, and how that can protect your back and how that can allow you to move in a much safer way. And everything I feel like in fitness and sports and movement stems from the core. I had a trainer I once worked with when I was competing for those fitness competitions, and he called it your powerhouse. And I loved that term because it's empowering to know that you can use that to hold in a plank or to do a push-up more effectively or whatever it is that you're doing. So I think that form and knowing the different muscle groups you're working, the more educated you can be as a student, the better off you're going to be as well. And I think, like you said, not being afraid to ask those questions and ask for help is only going to help you be better.
Yes, that's for sure. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for that, because I've often wondered about the HIIT training, and I definitely want to look more into that for people that ask me about it. So appreciate
Yeah.
that.
And one last thing I would say on the HIIT training is you probably don't want to do it more than 2 to 3 times a week, because it definitely can, even if you're not jumping and even when you're using light weights, it's a pretty intense activity. And so you want to be able to balance that out with other activities, more of like steady state training where maybe you're just running or you are on an elliptical machine, maybe doing some yoga. So I do think cross training is really important so that you're not getting overuse injuries or other things.
Well, and also, don't you think doing some cross training is good for our mind as well? Because if we're doing the same thing over and over, you know, I know that in terms of bone density, our bones like different activities. And if we're just doing the same thing over and over, we're not getting as much of that bone density building. But in terms of just our mind, we get bored with things, right?
Absolutely.
And so
Yeah.
it's good to vary it just so that we stay motivated, because that was that was our other topic we have here today is motivation. So
Mhm.
yeah, do you have any tips on motivation?
Yeah, I think having a wide variety of activities can definitely help because it keeps you engaged. It also allows you to not sort of hit your peak from a fitness perspective, right? You can challenge yourself to actually grow. And I think for a lot of people, they may not even realize it, but they may say, I just want to do the bare minimum to get by and to meet my movement requirements for the week. But I think if you start to pick activities that you enjoy, you start to also vary those activities so that you don't get bored. When you start to see results, you actually may find that, you know what, I actually want to kind of take myself to the next level and keep getting stronger and keep building my stamina. Again, not to the point where you're pushing way past your limits and overdoing it and getting injured, as we were talking about with HIIT, but doing it in a really safe and gradual way. I mean, I think that is the biggest motivation you can have, that, wow, 6 months ago, I wasn't able to run for more than 10 minutes. And now I can actually do 10Ks, and now I'm going to train for my next half marathon, as an example, right? Not everybody has to do that, but you could find yourself in those types of scenarios if you keep challenging yourself and growing and doing things that you enjoy. I also think wearing a wearable device, I'm actually charging my Apple Watch at the moment, but having, an Apple Watch or a Fitbit or something can also help you, because in my mind, data and knowledge is power. And if you're able to see every day, wow, like I only got 3,000 steps today and I was hoping to get 10,000, or I really only burned, 100 calories, and I want to push myself a little more next week in my fitness classes so I can burn more calories. Like, I think if you have that knowledge, you'll be able to also motivate yourself and challenge yourself to take it a step further. So I think those are really, really great ways to motivate. And then the last one I would suggest is, again, that community, whether it's with your spouse or your friends or a community that you've joined. I find that very motivating. It's one of the reasons I started teaching group fitness when I was in college, and it has stuck with me throughout my entire adult life, because I get motivated by working out with others and really feeling that energy together and that camaraderie. So I
Mhm.
think those are all ways that can help you to stay motivated.
Right. And then the one element we didn't really dive into too much was mindset. Is there a mindset that you see people that have been really successful in their wellness and fitness practices that most people have this mindset?
Yeah, I think it's, being able to be kind to yourself, be empathetic to yourself, and also, you know, build confidence in your abilities. I think the more we can all overcome fears or those inner voices that tell us that we can't do things, and being able to kind of break away from that. And again, if you're taking those small steps, like we were talking about with behavior change, if you're getting that community support, if you're doing things that you enjoy, then that's going to build confidence. And the more you can tap into the days when you feel really good and sort of challenge your mindset when you go into those periods of, you're not speaking very positively to yourself and you're being negative in your thinking, look to those times when you were successful. Look to those times where you actually felt great because, you challenged yourself to do something and you met that challenge. And the more you can remind yourselves of those times where you felt good and you were successful, then you can tap back into that in your mind and then, do more of that versus sort of going into, self-pity or feeling negative or feeling fearful. And it happens to everybody. So I think it's something that whether it's a new fitness activity you're trying, whether it's your nutrition and how you're eating, whether it's your weight or other goals you have in your life, I think we all go through periods where we feel less confident. And it's okay. It's okay to acknowledge that. But then you think, okay, where do I go from here? And what can I do to shift my thinking and my mindset into a more positive state so that I can actually take the action and then be successful and keep building on that. So it's something that takes time. I often suggest to my clients to write in a journal if that helps you, because it just is a really great way to sort of organize your thoughts and how you're feeling. And the more you can make sense of it and sort of gain perspective from it, the more you'll be able to sort of shift your mindset when you need to the most.
Yes, that's a big topic in and of itself, right?
It is. We could do a whole conversation just on mindset.
Exactly. Exactly. Well, thank you, Rena, for all the great tips that you've given us today. And I know you have a free gift for our listeners. Could you tell us a little bit about what you have to offer them?
Yes, absolutely. So since we spent a lot of time today talking about movement, I wanted to share that if you go to passionfit.com/offers, so PASSION FIT, and then /offers, I am offering a free 45-minute total body sculpt workout video that will be delivered right to your inbox. And I filmed this video a few years ago with many women in the Passion Fit community. I think there's about 15 of us in this video, and they're all my dear friends as well. And so you can feel like you're working out with a supportive community right in your own living room, which is perfect for the pandemic. And in addition to that, then you'll also get some other free gifts, different articles that I've written, other videos, a PDF worksheet that can be helpful for kind of following my 7 steps to holistic wellness and other things as well. So feel free to check it out. And I want to make sure that everyone is gifted with that, because I think now more than ever to be able to have access to free workouts from your home is really important given the pandemic that we're in.
Thank you, Rena. I am so grateful for your generosity, and I hope you all will take advantage of that. It's a great offer, and I know you'll benefit from it, because if you even just go to our website, you'll see all the great information out there. So thank you, and thanks for being with us.
Thank you
And
so much for having me, Betsy. It's been a pleasure to speak with you today.
yes, likewise. And all of you out there, we have so many more great speakers to come this week. So stay tuned and keep watching. We love your comments. It's so wonderful for the speakers to have them. So please comment in the box below. We're not tracking your email or anything with that. It's good to, let them know that you're out there. So please comment, and we look forward to seeing you in the next video.